humans are social creatures. We interact. The way we're built is for us to survive socializing. We're not isolated loners. One human on an island by themselves is eventually going to go mad and die. Whereas you have a group, you can start taking care of each other.
Thank you for tuning into the Why Influence podcast, where we interview influencers about their why and motivation for sharing online. I'm your host, Jeremy Siegel, and today our guest is Ruben Rojas. Ruben does murals all over the world, and he shares his journey online. He's actually saved people's lives with the work that he does. Without giving any more spoilers, let's jump into the interview.
Welcome to the Why Influence podcast, where we deep dive into the why behind some of the world's most influential people. Why do you influence? Why are you an influencer? We hope to inspire you to share your voice with the world. And now, your host, Jeremy Siegel.
Well, Ruben, firstly, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you for having me on your show, Jeremy.
Of course. So I've been checking out your content, and you've got some awesome stuff. You talk a lot about self-love. There's a lot of uplifting things that you do. So do you mind just giving us a 2 to 3 sentence spiel about what it is that you do, and talk a little bit about your platform that you have, or platforms?
Yeah, so I'm kind of multifaceted. So I'm an artist. I use art as my medium, but I also speak and do poetry and do murals and do street art and do all these different things. So it's really hard to put myself in one basket. So I'd say, I guess overall, I'm just a creator. And my mission is really to show people that we can live through love and really view the world through the lens of love more often than we don't. We're consistently bombarding by messaging and news of negativity. We're not enough. More gun killings and violence, and everything's just so negative. It's all scary. Everything's fear-based. So like where I'm trying to come from is like there is so much good in this world. There is so much love. There's so much just other stuff that's not going to make you afraid. And I really want to showcase that as much as possible. And that's what my work is based off of. And I like to say that I'm on a world peace mission. Not that I'm going to generally make world peace happen, but if I could help one person move toward that, and another, and another, and that's a few people moving the pendulum forward. So maybe not in my lifetime, maybe in my future kids' lifetime or grandkids, or who knows, we're going to be in a more loving planet.
I like that a lot. I think it's a very selfless mission for you, just trying to move the world forward in this specific niche that you're working in. Yeah. And if everybody lived with a purpose like that, then the world's going to be an amazing place just over time, inevitably.
Yeah, and it's just super cool to be able to do art and sell my art and do t-shirts and do this and do that. That helps all of this and allows me to make a living doing it as well. And just a little reminder for everyone, they look up and there's one of my art pieces on their wall, or they drive by a mural. It's just a little, I like to call them pleasant interruption or paint inspirations. So yeah, it's super cool.
That's awesome. Is there something you can share right now for when you had an unintended consequence? Like when you did a mural and that mural affected somebody in some way that you found out later, or anything along lines like that that you're doing or that you've done?
I have a lot of cool stories that involve unintended consequences. You know, I like to say that I probably know about 10% of what impact I'm making, because 90% of the stuff I'm not being tagged in, or I don't know what's happening.
Right.
But I would say the most important one was when I painted my first mural, because that led to me being here right now, 100 murals later, and having a plethora of unintended consequences. As a Cliff Notes version, I've had people message me and say, you know what, Ruben, thank you. I didn't kill myself today because of your art. And you're right. I do belong here. And I am worthy, and I deserve love. And I'm just like, wow. Just getting that once is enough to fuel me to continue doing this for the rest of my life. But then consistently getting messaging along those lines. I've had someone come to a mural while I was painting it and talk about this exact thing and cry. And I have it all on video. Obviously, I haven't shared it because it's very personal, but like I have it there, and I'm like, wow, this is like really happening. My work is impacting people at this level. I've had people talk about their rape and say, I'm not a victim. I am worthy of love, and I'm not going to let this define me. I've had people talk about their cancer and feeling ugly and feeling sick, and then realizing that they're fighting for something bigger. An alcoholic saying, hey, maybe if I would have seen this years ago, I wouldn't be the alcoholic that I am today, and I'd be a better father, and I wouldn't be walking these streets. So like there's these consistent stories of things that are happening that are just, it's just remarkable. Like it's powerful. I can't even share how when I wake up and look at this, how it affects me. I get emotional. It's just what I have to do. It's a get to and a have to.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You feel like it's what you have to do. You feel obligated because you have this message that speaks to people and it's making an impact. And every story you just mentioned is just really powerful. I mean, you're saving people's lives doing what you're doing. That's amazing. So let's go back to when you first started. You talked about one of your highlights is when you did your first mural. Is that when you decided to start your platforms and start doing this mission, or where was the beginning for this?
Oh man, we go back to the way back. So I went to school to be an orthopedic surgeon. I didn't even go to art school. I didn't even do art. I mean, I did my first mural about 5 years ago. But then I ended up in real estate, made a ton of money in real estate. Then I lost all my money and went bankrupt. And then I went into financial planning and I started doing well in there. But it's like I'm not motivated. I wasn't inspired. I'm like, look, I'm not driven by money. Like I need to make an impact. I mean, I need to make a difference in the world. And I was sketching on a piece of paper and my buddy said, hey, we got to put that on a wall. And that led to my first mural. So with the intention of that mural, did I ever think that it was going to launch what this is? No. But when I look back from the start, from the first mural, the foundation was there to do what I'm doing. That first mural says, who will you be, in the top left corner? And there's 75 words all over this mural that says grateful, leader, worthy, responsible, love, joy, happy. All these powerful ways of being that are positive in the lens of love, and looking at it through that lens instead of looking at it through fear. And then the next mural was about anything can happen, anything can be, living in possibility. And the next mural was about you are beautiful, making sure you own your beauty and who you are and how you were born. You're meant to be that way. Then the next mural was goals and dreams, and talking about, well, you can talk about your dreams. When you write them down, you actually turn them into goals and you hold yourself accountable, and so on and so forth. So then, like, by the time I've got a bunch of murals and I'm like, well, there's a whole thing here. So inside me, it was always there and the foundation was set, but it took me a long time to realize like what I was doing. It was kind of just coming out of me, because at the beginning, I was still a full-time financial advisor. I was living half in, half out. I started self-sabotaging that business, and it drove me insane because I was almost feeling depressed. I was feeling like, how can this be the rest of my life? Like, this is what I have to do to go make money to, like, I wasn't happy. It was like going against my soul, even though I know the work I was doing was really good. It's good for people. I had people put in disability claims. I had people saving. I had people down the line that had a life insurance claim. So I know the impact of that work is good, but I just wasn't motivated the way the industry worked. And I lived in this half in, half out space that I call Mediocreville, that I think is just probably the worst place you can be. It's better to just fail. At least you know you're trying and you're failing, and or obviously trying and succeeding. But when you're in this mediocre zone, kind of like phoning in your life, going through the motions, it's depressing. It's painful. It's agony. It was miserable. I was trying to figure out, am I depressed? And I don't use that word lightly, because depression is a very, very big problem in this country, and mental illness. But at the same time, I was feeling like I didn't want to get out of bed. I wasn't motivated to go do this because I hated what I was doing. I hated my job. I hated the way my life looked at that time. But I also didn't give this art thing an opportunity. So I didn't even know what that was going to look like. So on top of hating what I was doing, I was like scared of doing this other thing and not letting it be what it could be, because I was in fear. So I was just in this whole operating out of fear place. And then one day I just stopped going to the office and let the art really take off. And it was really me telling myself, like, look, you've operated.
So when was that?
That was 2.5 years ago.
Okay. So you did your first mural 5 years ago, and then 2.5 years ago is when you left the financial space and started doing this full time?
Yes. And it's just been a rocket ship ever since. It's what I have to do. It's what I'm supposed to be doing. Doesn't mean that's any easier. But it's where I'm supposed to be. And at the end of the day, I wake up happy. I jump out of bed. I'm not miserable. I'm not like looking at 40 years from now, what's it going to look like? Am I going to be divorced because I just resent everything and my kids are going to hate me, even though I'm like, well, I made you a lot of money, which is another thing of why I had to get out of what I was doing, because I couldn't see my life being where I wanted it to be 30, 40 years down the line. And life is too short.
Right.
It's just too short to phone it in and to just...
So let's take a step back here and let's talk about your first mural. What was going through your head, or how did you get this opportunity? Or you were in these careers and then you said you wanted to pursue art, and then you had this opportunity to do this mural. So like, what happened there, and what prompted you to feel like that's what you needed to do and act on it?
Good question. It wasn't so much that I had this thing, hey, I'm going to go be an artist. Didn't even think about it. It just wasn't even a thought. I was in a leadership workshop, and my buddy, Evan Meyer, who's my business partner on several things now, had a little movement called Beautify Lincoln, where he was painting murals on Lincoln Boulevard because the street's ugly and it's called Stinking Lincoln and there's a lot of traffic. And then he saw me doodling. He said, dude, we got to get that on a wall. Like, that's got to be a mural. So we convinced our workshop that we're going to make a community service project, and it was going to be a mural, and it was going to be my first mural. And that's kind of how it came about. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go make a mural. Let me figure this out.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, you're going to make, that should be a mural, and we're just going to do it. I operate out of the mentality of I say yes to almost everything, and you never know where it's going to take you.
So you've got a friend who saw your drawing, who is doing murals, and he's like, hey man, you got to do it. And he just sort of encouraged you and pushed you to get that first one going.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I joke around and say he found me.
That's awesome.
And he now, because he introduces me that way now. Yeah, I found him. I'm like, oh, good. You're saying it now.
So then after doing the first one, what's the story behind the second one? Did you do that yourself, pursue that yourself? Did he ask you to do another?
Well, that movement we turned into a nonprofit called Beautify Earth, where we do murals around the world now. It's been around for 5 years. We've done 1,000+ murals. So was it me pursuing murals again? Not necessarily. I mean, I've always been a fan of street art. I mean, as a kid, I grew up doing art. So art's been a part of my life. I just never pursued it as a career. And I loved street art and graffiti. And in every city I'd go to, I'd photograph it. But I never saw myself as like, I'm going to be a guy doing that one day. So it kind of just happened. Like, now I always look back, I'm like, that's super cool. I used to just, when I was wanting to be a photographer, document all this.
Yeah, true.
And another opportunity came up, and they're like, hey, let's have Ruben do it. I made a design. Boom, there was the second mural. It became the most loved mural of Santa Monica for several years. And that was like a year later.
The second one?
Yeah.
Okay. And then right after that, you're like, let's go big with this. And now you've got 1,000. It was pretty fast.
Still, no, it still wasn't big. It was like, okay, well, Ruben personally and my organization are two separate things. So then probably 6-7 months later, I did my next mural. Then we were curating another project where somehow it fell apart. It was in Mississippi. This was the Goals and Dreams one, which became my fourth mural with American Express. And then the fourth mural turned into a fifth and turned into a sixth. And it was funny. I used to ask myself, well, like, what is my brand, right? What is my style? I didn't think I had one because everything had a different color or something, but everything always had words, a message, typography. So that was right there, the foundation of everything, using words. Art's already so subjective. Like, I want to at least open the door for you. You could walk through, but sometimes you look at a piece and you're like, what is that? What were they thinking? What am I supposed to feel? I don't know. Like, I'm telling you what it is. And a lot of it I paint for myself since we're mirrors of each other. So if I need to hear it, someone else probably needs to hear it. And maybe it means something completely different to that person, but that message triggers something.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, you belong here. I painted for me. It's like, I belong here as an artist. But as I shared earlier, that message also said to someone else that, hey, I'm not taking my life because I belong here and I get to live. Right? I mean, that's extra like next level on what they took it as their meaning.
Yeah, for sure. So then how far in your journey did you start your personal brand or documenting this process?
So documenting from the start, I've documented everything. I've been a big documenter and creator, and I've always been a fan of creating film and stuff. So luckily I have that. So I have a hard drives of stuff that eventually down the line I may make something out of. But I create a lot of content. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of things out there. And it was more so like, I think it would be cool for people to realize like how this is made, that it takes a little bit of effort. Granted, I only show just like the making of the mural. I don't show like the 4 months of negotiating or permitting or this or that or the other things. But I started all at the right time, the beginning of the social media era too, right? So that does help now. I mean, everyone has the opportunity to create a platform and share their voice. Just don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't say, well, I'm not the guy with 2 million followers. So one day you can be. Don't compare yourself to that or you'll never do your own platform justice.
Right. And you're mostly active on Instagram's your main platform. Is that correct?
Yeah.
As far as social media?
That's the main one. There's some YouTube stuff.
So you've got a ton of content on hard drives and you have tons of content, but you're mostly sharing on Instagram what you have on your phone, and you've got like a bunch of other stuff stockpiled somewhere. Is that a good assessment?
Yes, that is a good assessment. I mean, I've shared a ton. There's a ton out there, but like everything I've done has been organic. I've kind of built a team now, and we're actively going to start doing some ads. I'm going to start really expanding the story and the reach and what we're doing.
Okay. So when did you start your Instagram? Was that from the beginning?
Yeah, I think if I go all the way to the bottom, I know my first post is still on there. I don't know, 2008, I think. When did it start?
When did Instagram start?
Yeah.
2010.
But I mean, that's changed too. It's changed from like, I used to be a CrossFit athlete. So then it was mostly CrossFit stuff. And then it was my travels on there. So now it's just art, travel, and my life.
Okay.
Is really what's on there. So I know when we travel, people have a good time.
So you've been sharing your life for a while on Instagram, like through your different levels, your different interests?
Yes.
Okay. So as far as getting to the point of sharing more of yourself, and it can even apply to things that you're working on now, because it sounds like you're working on a rebrand and ramping things up to another level. But were there any stages where you had to give yourself permission to get to the next stage? And if so, do you mind talking about any of them and maybe the steps that you took to overcome that?
Yeah, I operate with this thought in my head that I always say it's never the right time unless you make it the right time. So it's not so much me giving myself permission, it's more so owning what I've created already and looking at it and acknowledging it. Because I'm already doing it and I'm putting it out there, but it's like, oh wait, look how far I've come. We forget to take a moment and take a breath and look back at what's been created.
I like that. So you're giving yourself permission to acknowledge your accomplishments.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not an egotistical thing or anything like that. It's just like, hey, let's look back and look at what we've done. Because sometimes I'm constantly setting a new bar and setting new goals and like, I want to get here, here, and here. But we forget that, wait, we just hit all the last goals. Like realize that. So you know that you're going in the forward momentum and you know that you're evolving and growing. So that's really where that is mostly. It's never really been I need to give myself permission to do something.
Okay. So that makes sense. So giving yourself permission to acknowledge your accomplishments. So it sounds like that's something that you might have struggled with and you're maybe buckled down so much that you just worked towards the next goals. So what do you think stopped you from giving yourself that permission initially or just inherently to acknowledge your accomplishments?
It's just moving quickly and probably, honestly, it's just I set the bar so high and these goals so high. For example, I mean, I'm joking around that, yeah, you know what, I want to paint the first mural on Mars. Who knows when Elon's going to get us there, but I think it's the mentality and the thought process of thinking, like, that is something I can accomplish. Granted, there's a lot of chess moves to get to that point. So I think that's why. It's because I set these crazy, insane goals that you don't realize all the little things that you've done to get to that point sometimes.
Okay. And so how have you been able to acknowledge your accomplishments? Or what have you done to be able to take the moments where you can make sure you get those little wins?
When people tell me and I get this big old grin on my face and I'm like, you know what? This is when I get to receive and I get to receive what they're talking about. So that's mostly when.
Okay. So either compliments based off the progress you've made or maybe unintended consequences of the impact that you've made.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Like my wife will tell me or Evan, who I like to say found me because we're doing some other things. He'll tell me like, so yeah, it's just people telling me and actually then you can take a moment and pause and take that in.
Okay. Have you ever found that maybe you were needing it and you weren't getting it and then you maybe were asking for some of that feedback from others, or is it mostly just been incoming and that's what's been keeping you aware that you're acknowledging these accomplishments?
One of my things that I've worked on for a long time is I'm a big giver. I give so much. And sometimes that by the end of the week, you're just exhausted. You want the couch, you want yourself and nobody else. So I started realizing and allowing those things to come in because I know that I needed to receive more so that I could replenish the energy, right? Giving and receiving is like ebbs and flows of coming and going. The energy just rejuvenates each other. So if you're not allowing one in versus the other, then there's an issue. Just like takers take, but if they don't give, they're not balancing that out. So in my case, I would overgive and then I'd just be spent. So learning what was causing that helped me in receiving as well.
So are there any good tactics that you've used to help you increase how many receipts that you're getting with that? I mean, I know social media helps scale that and people can private message you, but do you like ask in posts or Have you used any methods to being self-aware enough to know that you need those acknowledgments? Have you done something where you've positioned yourself to increase that influx?
No, I don't think I've done anything specifically for that. No, I mean, I ask people to engage in things like that all the time, but not for that.
Yeah, so you're getting all organic stuff. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. All right, so I'd like to move on a little bit into your why. Typically, before people give themselves permission, they need a good enough reason to take that leap to give themselves that permission. And, it doesn't have to be about the topic that we're talking about, but what's making you unstoppable right now? Like, why does it feel like you are doing exactly what you need to be doing? Like, what's keeping you moving forward with your journey?
My results. At the end of the day, if you're consistently moving forward, if you're consistently acting, your results are going to speak for themselves, and they are going to reinforce what you're doing. And I'm a big believer in, like, we got to take responsibility for what we're creating. No one's going to do it for me. I've got to do it for myself. It's my life. And that's really what has helped garner all of this, and constantly experimenting and evolving and saying yes to things, unless like I have this visceral reaction of like, no, you better say no to this one.
So why is it so important to have these results and to keep moving forward?
I mean, a couple of things. I've been an athlete my whole life. So the byproduct of being an athlete is the results, right? You train hard, you win. You put in the work, you win. So your results are how you're measuring, how you're competing. And that doesn't mean you have to be overly competitive. That was something that I worked on because I used to be very overly competitive. I wanted to compete in everything. But I think it comes from the athlete mentality. Some people I've noticed, they weren't athletic. They weren't in athletics. So they don't have that mentality. They operate a little bit different. But I mean, I was in sports, football, soccer, and track, and then CrossFit. And you put in the work, your results help you win. That's really what it is.
All right. So I'm just diving deeper here, but why is it so important for you to win?
Because if I win on my current mission on what I'm doing, then everyone wins. Where in the past, I know how I was winning didn't really mean that everyone was winning. It was different, right? When you're money motivated and money was everything, you didn't care how you got there. And then I lost it all. So that was a big lesson. But now it's like we win and we rise by lifting others. So that's why.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So you went from a world where if you won, it doesn't mean that anyone else wins. You're winning your own world. You're winning wealth. But now you're in a position where if you win, other people win.
Yeah.
So I'll try to go one level deeper here, but why is it important for you to help others win?
I mean, there's a couple of ways of answering this one. It's important because at the end of the day, everyone has gifts and special skills, and they all complement each other. And then there's people can help people in myriad of ways that are going to help them all win. So I have certain skills that are going to help other people win, while they have certain skills that are going to help me as well. So I look at it that way. Humans are social creatures. We interact. The way we're built is for us to survive socializing. We're not isolated loners. One human on an island by themselves is eventually going to go mad and die. Whereas you have a group, you can start taking care of each other. Some could go hunt, some could protect, some could farm, all the things. So if you study anthropology in that sense, I think it's just that's our in nature to do.
All right. So is it safe to say, I'm just trying to gather what you're saying here, but everyone has gifts and special skills. So you're working on creating a movement where you can create a group of people who can be supportive of each other in the realm of making sure that everyone else feels loved and included and all the things behind your mission.
Yeah. So for example, with that, it's like I start building out a team, and I have a video guy who's going to put videos and things together of stuff that I'm creating with my messaging. And I tell him what I want so we can kick it out, right? That's one thing. Then I have a biz dev guy that's going to help me be put in front of different people to share this message, to get it out there and help us make some money at it. Then I have, let's say, a head creator. So all these positions are going to help all of us win. So building out that team.
Awesome. All right. So I guess I'm going to move on from diving deeper into your why here, unless you have any other words you'd like to share.
I mean, why I do it also is because of the results. They consistently tell me that I need to be doing this, how people share, how it impacts them. At the end of the day, that's what it is. When you act out of service, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different world when you're just being in service. So, I mean, that's really also the foundation of the why. It's be in service to humanity, be in service to what you're doing, operate out of that space, and you will be abundant and your results will be there.
That makes a lot of sense. And that powerful of a why is definitely something powerful enough to just make you unstoppable. It just makes sense. So it sounds like you're a very much of like a yes person. If someone asks you to do something, you'll say yes, unless it's very outside that realm. So it may be hard for you to come up with something, but I'd like you to try. Are there any barriers that you felt that you had to overcome during your journey? And if so, do you mind sharing any of them with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's always barriers and there's always obstacles. When I'm designing a mural and there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and I'm like, wait, you hired me for a reason. Let me do me. Like, if you're putting me in a cage, we're going to have a much harder time getting to the end result of what we're trying to do. So those are some of the biggest obstacles I deal with. And sometimes it really drags out the design process and the execution of the mural, for example. And then there's obviously just all the red tape, getting permitting and doing all the paperwork and all those things. Those are a lot of obstacles and things that could inhibit us from painting walls and spreading more work. And then budgets too, making sure that we're being compensated for our time. It's not going to be an expense. It's going to be a win-win situation in that as well. So those are kind of the big three obstacles. Aside from that, I try not to let anything really tell me no, because I'll figure out a way, or I've got people around me that'll help me figure out a way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good stuff. I mean, even though it's specific to what you're doing, that applies to a lot of situations, talking about budget and going through processes or paperwork, and especially the control of the design. Just had someone the other day who had a big podcast, and they were talking about when they bring on sponsors, those sponsors are influencing control over how they're doing things, and it's in ways that they don't want. So now they're shifting to try to have some community funds so that they can get rid of their sponsors and then just have complete creativity for what they're doing.
Yeah, or also go get sponsors that align with your vision and your mission in the first place.
Right.
Then it's a win-win. It's a win-win with both people, with both parties.
I like that. All right, so a community is really important for what any person of influence is trying to do. So I'm just curious, what does your community look like, or what does your community feel like, or where's your community mostly sit?
Aside from like the circles that I roam around in, on social media, there's a community on there. When I post things and they comment and they like and we have a conversation, like I make sure I reply to everybody as much as possible. Sometimes stuff gets overlooked, but I really have the intention of like replying to every single comment message that comes my way. That's how I help build community. Sometimes I do murals where I have people come and paint with me, and there's 30 people out there painting with me on a community paint day. So right now, with everything that we're doing, we're really going to start shifting to really growing this thing. So again, everything's been organic and it's been a one-man show. Now that we're really putting a team together to really help cultivate and grow this, maybe let's set up a time and in a year from now, see what happens to recap.
Yeah, I'd love to reconnect and see how things change.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just really being me, and I hate using the word authentic, but it's just being real and authentic and putting it out there. That's really what it is.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Authenticity is really important. So I know we sort of started off early with the unintended consequences, but I'd like to revisit it real quick. Do you have maybe one really powerful story that you're willing to and interested in sharing that just really touched your heart based on something that you did? And it could be more elaboration on something you mentioned earlier.
Well, some of the first ones that I shared are, to me, they're very powerful, but it's mostly an interaction from a DM I got or something like that. The project I did in Mississippi, that was an amazing project. I was flown out there with American Express to paint a mural on the side of a building next to Ground Zero Blues Club, and I got to work with the high school kids down there. And the thing about Mississippi was, I'm born and raised in LA, so like very blessed to have been able to do that and live where I live. And I've traveled, but at that point, I haven't traveled like through middle America. Like you've been up and down the east and west coast and like Chicago and Boston and Austin, bigger cities. But like this little town in Mississippi, and it was so eye-opening for me. It was like, wow, this is America. There's so much more of this than LA, right? living in Santa Monica
Yeah.
Beach, like where I live. People vacation where I live. It's funny. I was just in Italy for 3 weeks, and I'm like, hey, I'm leaving where people vacation to go vacation. Just thinking that is like, wow, that's amazing. How grateful I am for that. But it was just so eye-opening because it's like they're looking at us like, who are these three dudes from LA, Hollywood is how most people call it, and they're out here with us. And then we got them singing and dancing. We painted this mural. It was just very powerful. And then my two buddies that were with me, we after that day ended, we huddled up and like we literally held each other and just started crying. It was just tears of like gratitude and just like look what we were able to do in a weekend. That was what the fourth mural I painted. So that was just something like, wow, there's a lot of legs of what I'm doing and I got to keep doing it.
That's really cool. That's an awesome story. Thanks for sharing.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, I just remember that. When we have some video and stuff of that too. It was just really cool. It was just a really cool experience.
Awesome. Well, let's say you meet an aspiring influencer, someone who either doesn't have anything or is just starting out just started out recently. What would be some of the biggest piece of advice that you would tell this person?
Don't compare yourself to anybody else and don't worry about anybody else and just do what you're going to do. If you compare yourself, you're just going to be miserable. You're going to be trying to live up to something else and then you're going to try to do it the way someone else is doing it. You got to do it your way. You're going to build a platform for you and you're going to have followers for you doing it your way. If you try to be someone else, they're going to see right through that. That's really like my key takeaway for that is just be you. It's easier to just be you also and be you all the time.
That's great advice. So let's say going off of that, you meet someone who is already established and influenced, maybe in the same realm that you are. What are some things that you feel like that you're doing different than the average person in your space? And do you mind sharing some of that secret sauce or some tips that you would give to someone who's more established?
Yeah, I think it's honestly, it's that it's been the same thing from the start, this mission I want to elicit an emotional response from people when they look at the art and the work and the feeling. I want them to think. I want them to question. Like just doing this and just being in business my whole life, I've gotten to know that the majority of people are miserable and unhappy. And it's sad. And I was in that space. And it doesn't mean we can't feel unhappy and miserable and mad and upset at times. That's not what I'm saying. But it shouldn't be your constant. And just realizing that if you operate out of being you, you're going to be able to move that pendulum forward. And I think that's been some of the secret sauce is like I made that shift and I've stayed in that shift and I've continued to push that. And I haven't really wavered from that at all. If anything, I've just expanded the mediums that I've gone into. I started with the mural. Now I have gallery work and now I have fashion and then I have merchandise and then speaking and then all these other things down the line. I think they're all just a catalyst of if you're doing what you love and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, all these doors are going to open, but they're not opening out of luck. They're opening out of you putting in the work and staying focused and driving this down and essentially making your own luck.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, in a way, it's just a level up of the advice you gave to the new person, which is be you, but expand on that. So you branched out in different mediums. You knew your mission, you knew your purpose, and just being yourself is enough to inspire others.
Yeah.
Well, Ruben, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your why. Before I open the floor for you to pitch some of your stuff, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience, knowing who our audience is? Do you have any final last words of wisdom or advice?
Yeah, don't overthink it. Life is now. Don't wait for the right time. Don't wait for next year. I shot this video in my intro, and one of the things I talk about now is like, we constantly say, this is my year, this is my time, this is my why. And then, so go after it. Go do it. Stop saying it. Make today, this day, your year one. Don't wait for January 1st every single year. Because what happens between January 2nd and December 31st? Because you waited for January 31st. So like October 1st, February 1st, May 10th, April 29th. It doesn't matter. Make the day you make a conscious decision to make it now and say, look, today's year one. Let's go.
That's awesome. That's huge advice. Well, I'd like to end the episode with giving you an opportunity to talk more about your brand, your social accounts, your merch, anything else you'd like to share, and anything that you say, I'll make sure to put links on the episode show notes for everybody to follow through on that.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for listening. Please DM me. I love replying. Anyone could send me a message, ask me some questions, but you can find me at rubenrojas.com. I did just launch some merch and t-shirts on there. I have a big goal with that. But at the end of the day, all that is to support the mission of living through love. My Instagram's at Ruben Rojas. Basically, everything is at Ruben Rojas.
Well, perfect. Ruben, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey and being vulnerable with us. I hope you have a great remainder of 2019, and I look forward to seeing your influence keep on growing.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Well, that concludes the interview. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Ruben, thanks again for coming on the show, being vulnerable with us, and sharing your why. I just want to reiterate a few points that I thought were pretty powerful. There's one point in particular that Ruben brought up that I've actually quoted several times in conversations since doing this interview, and that's when he made the distinction between when he had his old businesses and old careers. When he would win, nobody else would win. And then there's a distinction with his new career, which is when he wins, other people win. And I think having something where you win and other people win helps a lot with fulfillment. And that's something that just hit me pretty hard. Ruben talked about one of his struggles was to give himself permission to acknowledge his accomplishments. He's usually a go, go, go type of guy, and sometimes it's good to just give yourself permission to acknowledge how far you've come. Ruben said that it's never the right time unless you make it the right time. He said, don't overthink it. Life is now, and don't wait. You should go after it. Stop saying it. Make today your year one, and don't wait for January 1st or the next year. Life is now. Challenge yourself to post something today. It's not the first time that we've heard this suggestion, but it's always good to reiterate, and that's to reply to every single comment, reply to every single message, and do that for as long as it's humanly possible. Until you hit that point, you should be replying to every single comment, message, everything. Just your community should be the most important thing to you, and the best way to be authentic and be true to that is to actually spend time with your community. So make sure that you're engaging with them to the max amount possible. It's pretty clear that Ruben's doing exactly what he should be doing. He's living as his truest, most authentic self, doing something he's passionate about and making a big difference. And that's something that is rare to find. If you want to learn more about Ruben and see some of his murals, then I suggest you go to whyinfluence.com, navigate to episode 24, that's Ruben's interview, and we'll have all of the links to all of his social channels and his website, all in the show notes of that page. That's whyinfluence, whyinfluence.com, episode 24. If you really enjoyed what Ruben shared with us today, then I suggest that you go to his social platforms and send him a message, tell him that you listened to him on the Why Influence podcast, and tell him how what he said impacted you. Because we all know what motivates him, and it's to hear feedback from other people. So if you enjoyed what he shared, go send him a message and give him that boost of motivation that drives him. I like Ruben's mission. It's clearly driven by making a positive impact while also making a living doing it. It's amazing. He's literally saved people's lives with the work that he's done. I feel like I did a pretty good job of this interview. I'm happy with how it turned out. I thought I did a really good job diving deeper and deeper into his why, and I'm happy with what we extracted out. And that's the whole purpose of the podcast, is to dive deep into the why so that we know what's making him an unstoppable force. And I think that we accomplished that in this episode. We did the interview over a video call, and then the quality cut out a couple times, so then we switched to audio only. And it's not the first time this has happened, so I don't know if it's the software or the signal, but it'd be nice to be able to see the other person while talking to them. So I might explore different software solutions in the future to see if we can get around that and try to bring some video component to the podcast, especially as we approach the 30th interview, because once we hit that, I'm doing a live update interview where Nathan interviews me on how the podcast is going, and you can interact with us and ask questions, and we'll do all that real time. So I need a better solution that's going to handle the bandwidth better than what we currently have. And I'll keep you updated on how that goes. I asked Ruben for feedback after the interview. He said nothing but positive feedback. He said, you're doing it, which is one big thing. He said the questions are good. He said, keep doing it and you'll get better. So it's all positive feedback, just reinforcement of keep going. If you made it this far, I'd like you to take a moment and give yourself a pat on the back, because this is a self-development related podcast. You're investing into yourself right now, and you deserve a nice pat on the back for making it through an entire episode of the podcast. I also want to just personally thank you for taking the time to choose the Why Influence podcast, because I know there's a lot of other options out there, and I'm truly glad that you chose to be here with us today. Again, our mission is to inspire the sharing of hidden knowledge and wisdom. So if anybody in your network is holding hidden knowledge and hidden wisdom, consider sharing this podcast with them. If you'd like to join the Y Influence community where we support each other in overcoming self-made barriers and growing our influence, then I suggest you go to whydiscord.com, WHY-Discord, DISCORD.com, whydiscord.com, and that's where our community interacts with each other. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, especially to the end. Ruben, if you're still listening, thank you again for coming on the show. We really appreciate you coming on here. You shared a ton of value with us, and we look forward to bringing you on again in the future as your why changes and as your journey evolves. I hope you have a great rest of your day or evening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Y Influence Podcast.